This pop art lesson includes a brief historical background, artwork descriptions, group discussion topics, an art exercise and an assignment prompt. Pop art started in Britain in the mid-1950s. The term was first discussed among the artists that were part of the Institute of Contemporary Art in London, called the Independent Group. With roots in Neo-Dada, this movement appreciates the material culture, by recognizing its strong influence in a post-war era. The artists wanted to express an optimism towards the energy among their generation towards using visual communication such as movies, TV, newspaper comic strips and magazines. Due to commercial images, pop art became one of the most identifiable styles of modern art. Just what is it that makes today's homes so different, so appealing? By Richard Hamilton. This strongly influenced pop art piece is considered the very first work of the movement. Seeing as consumerism was the symbol in the economic boom of post-war America, Hamilton collaged the modern life and its conveniences. Using magazine advertisements, he put together a common household depiction including a vacuum cleaner, canned ham and a television, alongside the modern bodybuilder and female dancer. 1960 President-elect, by James Rosenquist depicts this monumentally large face of Kennedy, collaged with a yellow Chevy and a piece of cake. His artwork included blending techniques, interlocking and juxtaposition. As Rosenquist explains,
the face was from Kennedy's campaign poster. I was very interested at that time in people who advertised themselves. Why did they put up an advertisement of themselves? So that was his face.
Andy Warhol was a major pioneer of the pop art movement. He studied pictorial design at the Carnegie Institute of Technology and then worked as an illustrator for largely known companies. With his background in advertising, he mass-produced traditional commercial images through a silkscreen printing process. In doing so, he shined a light on celebrity worship and commercialism. The most expensive painting today was sold for $105 million. Warhol's depiction of Superman 1961. In this action-style painting, he uses symbols of post-war America to create an abstract expressionist painting, as a reference to prideful heroism. Using his silkscreen printing technique, Warhol created this piece called 210 Coca-Cola Bottles in 1962. The image of a single Coca-Cola bottle is repeated in several rows and includes the company's logo. This format evokes the look of mechanical reproduction, even though Warhol most likely stamped each bottle by hand using a single carved woodblock. This is evident by the inconsistency in the bottle's ink application. Warhol explained,
"A Coke is a Coke, and no amount of money can get you a better Coke than the one the bum on the corner is drinking."
In 1962, Warhol famously appropriated the Campbell's Soup cans by painting each can by hand in a mass production, much like the advertisements which inspired him. When the Campbell's artwork was first exhibited, they were hung on shelves like products in a grocery store aisle. Warhol said of Campbell's Soup artwork,
"I used to drink it. I used to have the same lunch every day, for 20 years, I guess, the same thing over and over again."
In this adaptation of Marilyn Monroe in 1967, Warhol uses a screen printing method to quickly reproduce his hand-painted original portrait. He had not yet mastered the process and his printing mistakes became his trademark. His Marilyn portfolio consisted of 10 images with vibrant, psychedelic colors which were a signature to pop art graphics. Today this painting is worth $17 million. Warhol created this 15-foot portrait of the Chinese ruler, Mao Zedong. This massive artwork displays both realistic qualities as well as showing sort of a plastic artificiality. His use of bright colors and highly gestural brushstrokes shows Warhol's expressionist technique. Judy, by Warhol in 1978 was another iconic artwork created more than 10 years after her passing, as a way to emphasize nostalgia and fame. Warhol and Judy were at a TV producer's party that was called 50 Most Beautiful People. Warhol recalled,
"I watched as 5 boys carried her in off the elevator on their shoulders. It was odd because that night, for some reason, nobody seemed to notice her. I noticed her though. I always noticed Judy Garland."
This vibrant and colorful painting done by Warhol called Gravy's Zebra 300 is inspired by the endangered species of his time. This is just one of 10 artworks that were commissioned to raise awareness of the near extinction. This of Warhol's most cherished and collected series. The name, Grevy zebra, is one of 3 zebra species, besides the plains and mountain varieties, and is named after the President of the Third Republic of France. The zebra artwork has an erased and abstracted appearance, relating to the animal's potential loss in the wild. Today this painting was sold for $130 million. Here is a fun fact: the pop art movement changed commercialism in 1960 and Kellogg changed its original so-called fruit scone to the name Pop-Tart. Roy Lichtenstein made a big impact on the pop art movement by using popular culture as his subject. His innovative methods such as Ben-Day dots, hatch marks, blocked coloring and shadows along with the use of simple black lines are Lichtenstein's signature. It was difficult to distinguish between his paintings and screen prints due to his attention to detail and meticulous placement of color and lines. His philosophy was that art movements represent the current status of the world and tell a story about what the art achieved. During the pop art movement, reproductions and characterizations symbolized post-war America. Today, one of Lichtenstein's most expensive artwork has been sold for $165 million. Lichtenstein Woman of Algiers, Femme d'Algiers 1963. The original painting called Women of Algiers in Their Apartment by artist Delacroix in 1834. Initially, this painting was intended to be a male fantasy with women lounging around. Lichtenstein appropriates the painting soon after Picasso in 1963, by creating a less appealing woman through his placement of fragmented, geometric shapes in the grid form and uses the Mondrian-style colors. 1967, A Bigger Splash by Hockney. In this stylized painting that stands over 7 feet tall, was a final result of 2 smaller paintings called A Little Splash and The Splash. He used the newly developed acrylic paint as a medium to represent the moving water inside a swimming pool. He found it fascinating that a photograph could capture a split-second splash. As he comments,
"It takes me 2 weeks to paint this splash event. That lasts for all of 2 seconds."
Hockney's style was known to be cubist and aesthetic as well as having a signature disjoining technique. Today, this painting was sold for $23 million. Pause the video to have a discussion. Do you recognize any of these objects or people used in pop artwork? What objects or people do you think these pop artists use if they were here today? Try this exercise and experiment with pop art techniques. Use a small piece of paper and illustrate how the colors deepen when placing dots close together versus the dots being farther apart. Also experiment with mixing colors by placing 2 dots on top of one another. After learning about the pop art movement, you can now create your own pop-style artwork. Here are 2 prompts to start your creative process. Assignment option 1. Using animals as a basis for your watercolor painting, create a pop art style artwork using bright colors and bold lines. Assignment option 2. Create a pop art style reproduction of a single portrait photograph. Incorporate vibrant colors and bold lines using paint and pastels. After your artwork is finished, write an artist statement reflecting on your artwork. Be sure to include the name and style of the pop artist that influenced your composition. Also describe how you incorporated their style and subject matter into your original artwork. I hope you learned a brief history about the pop art movement as well as created a beautiful work of art. From Catherine Victoria Studio. Happy learning!